Hello everyone, and welcome to September 8th, the feast of the birth of the Blessed Mother, and Wednesday of the 23rd week in Ordinary Time. If you've been following the videos from this week, you know that in fact this is not an ordinary week, but one of significance, of remembrance of all that happened 20 years ago. We as a staff join you and all those around our country and world to stop, take time out of our daily routines to reflect and to remember. I was teaching at a high school in Pennsylvania back in 2001 on a day as beautiful as this one, with the sky this blue. And I can remember vividly sitting at my desk listening to the radio in between my classes and learning that the first tower had fallen. And I was incredulous. I remember thinking, where is that tower going to fall? I mean, I know how densely packed it was in that part of the city, and this awareness of dread came over me as I realized how terrible that day would be. And I remember praying over and over, God, please be with those people. Please be with anyone who is there. Please be with them. In a recent news story, teachers were being asked how they try to teach the events of 9/11 to those who were not even alive when it happened. And they responded that they try not to simply teach it as something historical, but to try to help their students understand it at a deeper level, at an emotional level, so that they can get a sense of what it means for those of us who experienced that day in real time 20 years ago. The teachers interviewed said something else that I found very meaningful. They talked about how they want to try to teach their students how life is different because of that day, and how they themselves have tried to live differently because of what took place. And that's good for all of us to reflect on this week. How have our lives been impacted by that day? For those who lost a loved one, or those who worked tirelessly in its aftermath, whether it be in New York City or Washington, D.C., or in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, words really failed in trying to offer some kind of explanation or comfort. One way my life was affected is that it really forced me to confront this whole notion of the presence of God in the face of such evil. I and many people I knew at that time wondered aloud how something like this could happen. Why would God allow something like this to happen? Where do we find hope in a place of such helplessness? In a new way, I found comfort and meaning in the cross, in a way that I never did before. And as I spent time in prayer, I remember I could sense God saying, look to the cross. I did not intervene and save my son from a horrible death. Evil will take place in the world, but in the face of that evil, love will have the final word. In the face of evil, somehow new life will emerge, and love will not be buried in the grave. And I remember during those times of prayer at that time, I could sense God saying, as I wept at the loss of my own son, I weep for the loss of all who died that day. I weep with you. But I heard God saying, look for the love that rises up. Look for the love that rises up from such darkness. And so I looked. And we all remember the amazing stories of sacrifice and generosity and genuine love that rose up from the ashes of so much death. And all these years later, during times of darkness and evil and helplessness, I try to remember that line, look for the love that rises up. Another way my life has been impacted is in the daily choices that I try to make. 9/11 showed just how fragile life is, just how quickly life can change, how ordinary, beautiful September mornings can change in an instant. I remember listening to the stories of people recalling their final conversations with those they lost that day. This is before, they knew that anything had happened. And many expressed regret at what those conversations were like, that if they had known it would have been their final words with someone, they would have chosen differently. And that really impacted me, and I try to be mindful of my interactions and conversations, to not take them for granted. I don't always remember to do this, but I try to remember not to take people or moments for granted. And lastly, I feel an impact that is reflected in today's gospel. I mentioned in the beginning of this reflection that today is the feast day of the birth of Mary, the mother of Jesus. There are two phrases from today's gospel that connect to how I've been impacted by 9/11. The first is, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. These words are spoken to Joseph in a dream when he was not sure what to do, when he finds out that Mary, his fiancée, is pregnant before they're even married. The angel in the dream assures Joseph that even though he doesn't understand all that is happening, the Spirit of God is at work and that he can trust God. Do not be afraid. Those are words that I've needed to hear many times since 9/11, when life and all that is so troubling can leave me feeling confused and unsure of what to do. I try to think of those words. Do not be afraid. The second phrase from today's gospel that stays with me is, God is with us. The passage says, the virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. These words have become sort of a mantra for me through the years. When all other words or prayers fail, sometimes all I can say over and over is, God is with me. God is with us. So I'd like to close with a short litany and invite you to respond to each one with me by saying, God is with us. When memories are difficult to carry this week, God is with us. When we are unable to see the road ahead and do not understand the next step, God is with us. When the loss of those we love breaks our hearts, God is with us. As we strive to live each moment and greet each person as a blessing, God is with us. As we try to be people who allow love to rise up among us, God is with us. May this week be a meaningful one for each of you. Be gentle with the memories that might come to mind. And may this week be a time for us to recommit to finding the ways that love rises up among us. Maybe you'll join us this Saturday at 4 o'clock for our outdoor rosary procession on the grounds of the church. We'll call upon the intercession of Our Lady of Good Health, Valankini, to bring healing to our world. And the 5 o'clock Mass will be a special Mass to remember the 20th anniversary of September 11th. If you're unable to join us then, join us Sunday morning at 11:30 for a festive Mass to the Blessed Virgin Mary, known in India as Our Lady of Good Health, Valankini. I hope to see you then, and know that I continue to hold each of you and all those you love in my prayer, and I wish you much peace and deep, deep hope.